I suppose when we look at over time, the characteristics of demand response in Ireland and flexibility have changed. And people who kind of look past just price response and they think about explicitly, they first think about peak reduction and its value. And you're being dispatched, you have an hour's notice or so. And then we then would have a very significant portfolio of customers that can actually increase their demand. So that's when there is high levels of renewables on the system that would otherwise be curtailed. And our customers can increase their demand through the use of increasing the demand by processes, or even some customers who would use their own embedded generation most of the time through gas generation. They'll shut that off and absorb from the grid and allow the power system to use more energy. And then I suppose we were very focused in VIOTAS in developing very high speed technology. When we entered the market, we set the pace at what we had 1 second metering, and the requirement was 15 seconds, and we were beating it with 1. And then we went firmly down the technology route, and we have our systems that we design internally now. We monitor up to 8,000 times a second, and the view that gives us of the system is very powerful for understanding the effects of what's going on the grid. It also allows very, very fast response. So if a power station, we talked earlier on about that spring, the springiness and the seesaw, and that you need to have quick response. The more quick response you have, the more you can reduce the spring. And if a power station were to trip in County Cork and we were controlling, for example, the kilns in a cement factory, which could be several megawatts, and this will be across multiple sites, multiple megawatts available. The time from when the power station trips to when that load is at zero is a fraction of the time it takes you to blink your eye. That's how quick it is. And so we've seen the evolution through peak reduction services, demand, so curtailment reduction services, frequency response, and we're kind of continuing it more. But when you look at like frequency response, that could be responding to voltage, for example. So I suppose, it's interesting now that we're starting to see, I think our last decade, Jon, has been focused on services for the transmission system, the heartbeat of the system. But now we're really, over the next decade, for us, we see that the opportunity is now with the distribution system.
I think that's absolutely right. We've seen, here in Ireland, it's often talked around that because we've got quite a small system and it's quite weakly interconnected to the system in GB, and we've managed, EirGrid have done a lot of work to push up to be able to accommodate up to 75% wind in any given interval. We've started to see some of those challenges before other markets. So we see other markets globally at the transmission system level now kind of looking for those faster response services that, that VIOTAS and other companies have kind of really pioneered here in the Irish market. But you're absolutely right. I think that, there's massive opportunity to get down to those capillaries. And, as we look to electrify massive swathes of energy, which has kind of previously been supplied via a network of petrol stations and via the gas network and tankers taking around heating oil to people's houses. As we put all of that onto swamping the distribution network, there's huge opportunity there to deploy that flexibility.